Have you ever looked at a woman and felt like something's changed? Maybe her energy feels different. Maybe her smile is softer. Maybe she's glowing and you don't know why. This isn't about judging her. It's about understanding her. As men who walk the path of Stoicism, we don't chase, we observe, we think, we act with wisdom. In this video, I'll show you 5 subtle but powerful signs that may reveal if a woman has recently been intimate, not to invade her privacy, but to better understand the emotional world she lives in, because women speak without always saying a word. Let's begin. 1. Her aura feels softer. You don't need to ask her. You don't need to guess out loud. You just feel it in the air around her. She walks into the room, and something's different. The weight she usually carries seems lighter. Her eyes don't dart around the way they used to. Her shoulders aren't tight. Her movements are slower, more graceful. She's not forcing anything, not her smile, not her words. It's like her whole body has taken a deep breath. The tension she usually holds in her jaw or her neck is gone. You can feel a softness. Not weakness softness. There's a difference. It's the kind of calm that comes after release, not before. A storm that's passed. A fire that's been fed. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't announce itself. It just exists. Quiet, present, undeniable. Sometimes she's more affectionate. Other times, she's distant but not in pain. Just full. Like someone who doesn't need anything from the world right now. This isn't about being sexual. It's about being sensitive. To energy, to emotion, to what isn't said. She may hold eye contact longer, or avoid it completely. She may hum, move slower, breathe deeper. She might wear less makeup not because she didn't care, but because she feels enough as she is. And yet, don't assume. This softness could come from healing, not from touch. From a deep prayer she cried the night before. From letting go of something that's been breaking her for months. From finally resting after carrying too much. That's why a Stoic man doesn't speak first. He doesn't label her change. He doesn't claim to know her reasons. He observes. He reads energy like a silent book, because presence doesn't require possession. And softness is not an invitation, it's simply a moment. So when you feel that change in her, breathe with it, respect it, and remember, real men don't guess. They understand. 2. The glow that isn't from makeup. It's the kind of glow that doesn't beg to be seen. But once you notice it, you can't unsee it. It's not shimmer, not contour, not foundation. It's not about colors or textures or trends. It's something much deeper than anything sold in a bottle or brushed onto skin. She walks in, and without a word, something feels different. There's warmth in her face that wasn't there yesterday. Her cheeks carry a natural flush, like she's been standing near a fire knot outside, but within. Her skin doesn't just reflect light, it holds it. Her eyes, they don't dart. They don't scan for approval. They settle. They soften. They look like they've seen something tender. Something that quieted the noise inside her, even if just for a night. Her smile isn't for anyone else. It's not flirtatious. It's not polished. It's the kind of smile people wear when they've just been reminded they matter. Not on social media, not in public, but in private when someone's presence whispered, "You are enough, just as you are." And yet, she's not trying to show it. That's what makes it so real. It's not a performance. It's not a signal. It's just residue leftover light from an intimate moment that softened her without taking her away from herself. Science calls it oxytocin, the bonding hormone, the chemical of connection. It's real. It's measurable. But a Stoic man doesn't need a lab report to understand what he already sees. He notices how her expression holds still just a moment longer, how she walks slower, as if the world feels less urgent, how her voice carries a gentler rhythm, like she's not rushing to protect herself from being misunderstood. But here's where wisdom steps in. Not every glow is born of romance. Not every softness comes from being touched by someone else. Sometimes it's because she finally forgave herself. Sometimes it's because she prayed last night until her pillow was wet, and this morning she woke up free. Sometimes it's because she cut ties with something toxic and is now meeting herself for the first time in months. Maybe she looked in the mirror and smiled without criticizing her body. Maybe she let herself rest without guilt. Maybe she walked away from something that no longer honored her worth. That's why a disciplined man never assumes. He doesn't reduce her radiance to a single cause. He doesn't ruin a sacred moment by turning it into suspicion or questions. He simply respects it. He lets her glow be hers. He doesn't claim it. He doesn't comment on it like it's his to interpret. He just observes, silently, without demand, without ego, because real masculinity isn't loud. It doesn't need to solve a mystery that was never meant to be solved. It simply honors what is. So when you see her shine, not with glitter, but with grace, don't make it about you. Don't ask, who made her this way? Instead, say nothing. Breathe it in, respect it, and understand. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is let her beauty exist without interruption. Because the man who doesn't need to know is often the one who understands the most. 3. Her words say less, but mean more. She doesn't need to spell it out. She doesn't owe you a clear timeline, a step-by-step story, or a deep explanation wrapped in clarity. Because sometimes the truth sits quietly between her words, beneath her breath, and inside the silence she chooses to keep. And a man who truly listens not just with his ears, but with presence will hear everything she's not saying. Her voice might sound calm, but that calm is textured. It's not the kind of calm that means nothing's happening. It's the kind of calm that only exists after something meaningful has passed through her. She might say something like, "It was a long night," and then pause. Not because she doesn't know what to say next, but because what came before that pause already said it all. Maybe she trails off mid-sentence. Maybe she adds a soft laugh at the end, not a joyful laugh, but a quiet one that protects a secret only she understands. Or maybe her eyes look down while her voice goes on, like her thoughts are in two different places. That's when you know there's something deeper at play. She won't tell you everything, but that doesn't mean she's being dishonest. It means the moment she's carrying is delicate. And sometimes, sharing too much of it out loud might ruin what little peace it brought her. You might hear her say, "I'm just tired," but not the bad kind. Or, "Yesterday was different." Or, "I needed today more than I thought." That's all she gives you. Just a few words. No details, no names, no timelines to follow. Just breadcrumbs if you're awake enough to see them. She may casually mention staying in, or going out, or meeting someone, but she won't linger on it. She might change the topic quickly, or sit in silence, or smile to herself in a way that doesn't ask for your curiosity. This is where most men fall short. They panic in the silence. They start asking questions to fill in the blanks. They lean in with suspicion. They start thinking, what happened? Who was she with? Why won't she tell me? But a woman's silence doesn't always hide deception. Sometimes it protects intimacy. What happened might have been special or confusing. It could have been everything she needed, or something she regrets. She may not even know what it meant yet, and she's still sorting through it. She's not keeping it from you to punish you. She's keeping it close because it still means something. Women who've been deeply affected, touched in a way that shifts something inside, don't always get louder. They get quieter, not out of guilt, but because they're still feeling it. And feelings like that rarely come with clear language. They're private, sacred, vulnerable. And sometimes, even she doesn't know how to translate it into words yet. That's why the Stoic man never rushes her. He doesn't poke. He doesn't pull. He doesn't project his fears onto her quiet moments. He watches, not with judgment, but with presence. He listens not just to her words, but to her timing, her tone, the rhythm of her breathing. He notices the long pauses, the soft laughs that cover something heavier, the hesitation that follows simple answers. And he doesn't panic, because he knows this isn't about him. It's about her internal world, and a man who truly honors her will give that space to unfold without interruption. She might talk about random things, work, errands, her favorite tea. But even those words feel heavier than usual. There's something underneath them, something recent, something close. And that's when the real man doesn't jump in with ego. He doesn't try to prove that he's figured her out. He doesn't ask her to give more than she's ready to. He doesn't confuse his curiosity with entitlement. He simply remains present without pressure, because sometimes the woman who says the least is trusting you the most. She's giving you the silence that holds her truth, not because she's hiding from you, but because she's inviting you to respect the weight of it. And if you can't sit in that stillness, if you need to pry it open, if you demand to know everything, then you were never meant to hold it in the first place. So the wise man waits. He breathes. He lets her speak when she's ready, and lets her not speak if that's what her soul needs. Because he knows the loudest truths are often whispered. The deepest emotions aren't shouted, they live quietly behind the eyes. And the purest trust? It's when she lets you be near her, without giving you everything. 4. A shift in her body language. Her body often reveals what her mouth will never say. And for the man with stillness in his spirit and wisdom in his gaze, that unspoken language says everything. You won't notice it if you're only looking at her face. You won't catch it if you're too focused on what she says. But if you watch the way she moves with awareness, not hunger, you'll see the shift. She enters the space quietly, not with a flourish, not seeking eyes. She's not dressing for validation. She's not performing for the room. She's simply at ease. And that alone draws attention without her trying. Her walk is softer now, not rushed, not dragged. Each step grounded, measured, light. Not as though she's uncertain, but like she's carrying less weight than she used to. Her back is straight, but not stiff. Her shoulders hang lower, not out of laziness, but releases if something she carried, something heavy and emotional, has finally been let go. You can almost feel that exhale in her presence, the exhale that didn't happen with words, but with healing. She might adjust her scarf slowly, or fix a sleeve with grace, not out of self-consciousness, but because she's aware of her body again. And this time, she's not dressing for defense. She's dressing in alignment. Watch how she sits. Leg crossed over the other without fidgeting, hands resting calmly in her lap. Eyes steady, breathing smooth. There's a quiet confidence in her stillness, like she knows who she is, and she no longer needs the world to agree with her. Or maybe she's standing near a window, brushing her fingers through her hair, not for seduction, but because she's in rhythm with her own peace. She's not fixing herself. She's simply existing, freely. She doesn't need to fold her arms to guard herself. She's no longer sitting on the edge of her seat like she's waiting for impact. There's no armor, no apology in the way she takes up space. That's the sign. Not in makeup, not in perfume, but in posture, in how she breathes through her shoulders, in how she walks into silence without shrinking. And make no mistake, this isn't always the result of physical intimacy. It's not always because someone touched her body. Sometimes it's because she was spoken to gently. Sometimes it's because someone finally listened to her pain without trying to fix it. Sometimes it's because she saw herself clearly in the mirror and chose forgiveness. Or maybe she spent the night with her forehead on the prayer mat, crying out to the one who knows her better than she knows herself. And when she rose, she wasn't the same. Maybe she left behind a relationship that drained her. Maybe she finally said no to something that kept her small. Maybe she chose to stop pretending, and now her truth is no longer locked inside. Whatever it was, her body is the first to say, "I've come home to myself." That's what you're witnessing. Not sex, not seduction, but self-reclamation. And here's where the real test of a man begins. Most men ruin this moment. They lean in. They make it about themselves. They ask, what changed? They try to name what doesn't belong to them. They interpret peace as permission. But the Stoic man doesn't do that. He doesn't mistake openness for invitation. He doesn't project his curiosity onto her softness. He doesn't ask invasive questions just to feel in control. Instead, he simply observes. He watches her energy the way one watches a flame, not to claim it, but to understand its warmth. He lets her have her silence, her new posture, her freedom, because he knows. The body remembers what the mouth doesn't say. And some changes were never meant to be explained. They were meant to be witnessed. He recognizes the sacred in her stillness. He honors the story her spine tells, the peace in her shoulders, the grace in her movements. Because some stories are written not in journals or texts, but in how a woman walks through a doorway when she no longer feels broken. And the man who truly sees her, he doesn't interrupt that story. He doesn't ask her to relive it for his understanding. He simply honors it, with presence, with stillness, with respect. Because in the quiet movements of a woman who's healed, survived, or surrendered, there's a beauty so deep, only the stillest hearts will ever understand it. 5. How she acts when she thinks no one's watching. The deepest truths don't always arrive through words. They rarely announce themselves in grand confessions, and more often than not, they hide in the quietest corners of her day, when she believes no one is looking. It's not in what she tells you. It's in how she exists when she's alone with herself. Not guarded, not watched, just present. You won't find the truth in the conversations she rehearses. You'll find it in the pauses, in the half glances toward the mirror, not to admire, but to check if she's still holding herself together. Her hair, her blouse, the soft lines on her face. She's not fixing anything. She's recentering, aligning with something within. You can feel her recalibrating not to please anyone, but to reconnect with her own sense of balance. That's not vanity. That's self-awareness. That's the body remembering what the heart still hasn't named. She brushes her cheek slowly, touches her neck like someone still feeling a warmth that's already gone. It's not habit, it's remembrance, a trace of a moment, a closeness, a shift that marked her quietly. Sometimes she pauses by the window for no reason at all, takes a deeper breath than usual. Not because she's tired, but because she's holding something sacred inside, and breathing is the only way to carry it without bursting. She adjusts her sleeves like they matter more than they did yesterday, moves with a quiet intentionality, as if her body has become aware of itself. again aware of its own story. She might stand still in a hallway. She might linger longer near a door before leaving. She might look at her phone, smile, and not reply. That's not distraction. That's processing. Her mind is still sitting somewhere else. A conversation, a moment of connection, something close that touched her and left her slightly undone. And in those moments, she's not talking about it. She's not tweeting it. She's not texting her friends, because some feelings are too delicate to share, too real to be reduced to words. They're felt, not narrated, and that's where the average man fails. He only sees what is loud. He only hears what is obvious. He responds to performance, not presence. But the man of stillness, the Stoic man, he sees what most never will. He watches not just her gestures, but the energy behind them. He studies not just her face, but the rhythm of her silence over time. He doesn't ask, "What's going on with you?" He doesn't demand, "Tell me what happened," because he knows some things aren't ready to be told. Some truths don't bloom under pressure. They bloom in safe spaces, in time, in trust. So he holds space. He lets her have her silence without fear. He allows her to feel without having to explain it all, because he understands something rare. That silence isn't emptiness. Silence is sacred. A woman processing something personal might go about her day just like before, making tea, folding laundry, scrolling through her phone, but everything about her is slightly different. Her timing, her softness, the way her breath slows down at odd moments, the way her eyes drift to nothing in particular. She doesn't need to explain it to be understood. And the man who is grounded in himself doesn't need her to. He can sit with her in that unspoken space, not to fix it, not to uncover it, but to honor it. That's strength. That's what real masculine presence looks like. It doesn't panic in the unknown. It doesn't chase clarity. It doesn't rush emotion. It simply waits, watches, and remains steady. Because the truth, when it's ready, will show itself. Not with drama, not with noise, but with the quiet unfolding of a woman who feels safe enough to let herself be seen, not because she was asked, but because she was respected. And if it never comes, if she chooses to hold that feeling inside forever, that's okay too. The wise man doesn't need to own her story. He just needs to be present enough to witness it, and humble enough to let it remain hers. Final thoughts. Strength is in restraint. Strength isn't always found in action. Sometimes it lives in the spaces where you choose not to act, in the silence you keep, in the questions you don't ask, in the patience you practice when everything inside you wants clarity, answers, resolution. Not everything you observe needs to be labeled. Not every change in her tone, her energy, her presence is meant for your understanding. Some things in life are sacred not because they're hidden, but because they were never yours to touch. You may notice she glows a little brighter, moves a little softer, pauses a little longer between her words. You may feel the shift. You may sense that something meaningful happened. But just because you noticed it doesn't mean you need to own it. Sometimes her peace is just father peace, not a signal, not a mystery to solve, not a door you're entitled to walk through. She may be glowing, but it's not always because of someone else. She may be silent, but that doesn't mean she's hiding. She may be softer, but that doesn't mean she's inviting you in. This is where true discipline reveals itself, not in strength of body, but in mastery of restraint. In your ability to see something beautiful, unfamiliar, or unexplained and let it be. To feel curiosity rise and choose not to follow it. To feel your ego itch for confirmation and stay still. to recognize a change and honor it without demanding access to it. That is what makes a man powerful. Not his ability to analyze every detail, but his willingness to hold what he sees with reverence, not ownership. You see, there is a kind of man who assumes every shift in a woman must relate to him, who turns awareness into obsession, who interrogates every smile, every sigh, every moment of stillness because he doesn't know how to sit with uncertainty. But the Stoic man, he observes. He sees her energy shift. He notices her movements soften. He hears the silence between her words. And instead of reaching for answers, he reaches for patience. He knows that some truths arrive without warning, and others not at all. He knows that some emotions don't want to be named. They just want to be felt and released. He doesn't take her softness personally. He doesn't let his ego narrate her story, because he understands. Presence is not permission. Awareness is not entitlement. Observation is not ownership. And just because something in her changed doesn't mean it belongs to him. This is where real strength begins. Not in what you can unlock, but in what you can leave untouched. Not in your ability to speak, but in your ability to stay quiet. To protect her privacy like it's sacred, even if she never asked you to. You don't need to confirm your suspicions. You don't need to turn her subtle glow into a conversation. You don't need to ask questions just so you can feel in control again. What you truly need is inner peace. The kind that doesn't flinch when things feel uncertain. The kind that isn't threatened by the unknown. The kind that can sit calmly with a mystery and not try to solve it. So when you notice something in her, a new kind of stillness, a different energy, a pause in her presence, don't make it about you. Don't force your way into a moment that wasn't meant to include you. Respect it. Let it pass through the space between you like wind felt but never grasped. And then return to what matters. Your path, your mission, your purpose. That's the strength of a man with restraint. Not to react, not to chase, not to claim, but to remain grounded, unbothered by what does not need his reaction. Because in a world obsessed with exposure, with knowing, with control, and be the man who can simply witness, the man who can sit in silence without needing to fill it, the man who doesn't need to possess a truth in order to honor it. That is real power. That is mature masculinity. That is depth. So hold your calm. Guard your silence. Respect what doesn't belong to you. And never forget, just because you see the signs, doesn't mean you were meant to follow them. Some truths are hers to carry. And your strength is knowing that you don't need to take them to feel whole. You only need to be strong enough to let them be. If something in this message made you stop, even just for a breath, if one sentence made you lean back and think, I've seen that, I've felt that, I just never had words for it, then this wasn't just a video you watched. It was a mirror being held up to your presence, to your patience, to your power, and not power in the way the world defines it. Loud, reactive, demanding, but silent power. The kind that lives in restraint, in how you see without speaking, in how you feel without forcing, in how you respect what isn't yours to claim. Because while this message spoke about women, their energy, their behavior, their silence, the truth is, it was never about her. It was always about you. How do you respond to what you don't understand? How do you treat what wasn't meant for your control? How do you carry yourself when curiosity pulls at you but wisdom says, let it be? That's what defines a man. Not his ability to read signs, but his ability to respect them. Not his urge to question, but his discipline to observe. Not his need to be right, but his strength to be still. So if something in this video reflected back a version of you that you want to grow into, if it held up a standard of masculinity that feels steady, mature, and real, then don't just watch this and scroll away. Respond, not for attention but for accountability. Drop a comment below. Share the line that hit hardest. You never know, your reflection might be the one that wakes another man up. Because we're not alone in this work. We rise sharper when we rise together. And if you felt that sense of calm clarity through these words, a peace you rarely find online, a moment of stillness in a chaotic world, hit like, subscribe, share this with a brother who still reacts too fast, speaks too much, or doubts his place in silence. Because this journey isn't about decoding women, it's about disciplining yourself. This isn't content, it's training. It's not theory, it's practice. It's the daily, deliberate shaping of a man who chooses patience over power, presence over pride, purpose over noise. Because anyone can talk about masculinity. Few can live it. Fewer still can protect it from the distractions of ego, validation, and control. But you've already taken the first step, not by watching, but by feeling something shift inside. So carry that shift with you, not in memory, but in action. Walk differently, pause more, speak less, and listen not just to others, but to yourself, to your triggers, to your silence, to your purpose. Because the man who can observe without reacting, hold space without needing answers, and move forward without needing permission. That man doesn't need to be explained. He is the explanation. Until next time, stay silent, stay grounded, stay powerful. Because in a loud world, the man who rules his inner world is the one who leaves the strongest mark without ever needing to make a sound.